Hi golfers, Rob Cheney here from GOLFTEC Singapore. Today we're out on the golf course. We're going to be discussing sloping lies, uphill and downhill lies, some of the more tricky situations you find yourself in on the golf course, and ones that, let's face it, are quite difficult to practice. So let's discuss the things you need to know to be able to play these two difficult shots more successfully. So how do we deal with upslopes? I would say of all the sloping lie situations, this one tends to be the easiest one to deal with. And I'll give you my theory as to why that is. But upslopes by themselves generally only create one major issue, which is, depending on the severity of the upslope, it can be quite difficult to maintain your balance when you swing. But if you are able to make good contact, the thing that's going to change here is the ball's going to fly much higher than you expect for a regular shot, and therefore it's going to drop shorter of its intended distance. So you certainly have to factor in the distance that this shot's going to fly, and that's going to be gauged by the severity of the slope. In order to create the best possible likelihood of good contact, I'm going to talk you through how to set up for this shot. This is a question I do get asked a lot, and people often get this one a little bit confused. We talk in terms of uphill and downhill slopes about getting your body, your shoulders to be perpendicular, or sorry, to be parallel to the slope, or to get your spine perpendicular to the slope. And there's some good theory in there, but how people get to this is often misunderstood. Specifically on an upslope, as you take your setup, the tendency is for your weight to want to fall back down towards the lower foot. And if you're to do that, it makes it quite likely and quite possible for you to end up tipping back excessively. And even though the ground is lower behind the ball than normal, I still see a lot of golfers mishitting the ball, hitting the ground back before the ball, or even being so far back that by the time their club reaches the ball, it's actually the club's beginning to ascend, and they hit a lot of top shots. So how are we going to deal with that? Well, we do want to get our spine more or less perpendicular to the slope, but rather than doing it from a 50-50 or even a 60-40 weight point of view in terms of having more weight on the back foot, I'm going to tell you, you want to set up with your hips more forwards, so you're creating that spine tilt, you're creating this spine matching the slope picture by pushing your weight more forward. The single most important thing you can ever look for when you're playing on awkward slopes is my club hitting the ground. All right, swing back, hit the ground, and take a look at where the club is bottoming out, because that is the best guide that you could possibly ask for in terms of whether or not you're likely to be successful. So don't go about swinging, hitting the ground in all sorts of different places and random places and expect to be successful at this shot. Take your setup, push hips forward. My weight is forward, okay? My weight is forward. I'm not going to fall backwards. My weight is forward by virtue of pushing my hips forward. Take a swing back, try to stay centered and balanced. If that means you have to make a slightly smaller backswing than you normally would, then do so. If you make a big backswing and you start to find yourself losing your balance, that's not going to help. Take your setup, weight forward, the ball a little bit more forward in my stance as well. I'm going to make a balanced, centered pivot. I'm going to make sure my club is bottoming out there just after the ball, which is exactly what I would want it to do for a full shot as well. Okay, I'm going to step in and try and hit this one. In terms of my thinking in the swing, I generally try to hit these uphill shots with more of a punch finish, and really just trying to maintain my balance. Weight forward, arms straight. That should give you a couple of good ideas in terms of playing the uphill lie. Never forget, the most important thing that you can be doing on any slope, swinging back and checking where your club hits the ground. So in my experience, the downhill slope represents the most challenging sloping lie for amateur golfers. That's because it's very, very difficult to make solid contact. We know from previous sessions, we know we want to hit the ground after the ball. That becomes increasingly difficult when we're on a downslope. So what should you be looking for? When we set up to this shot, one of the biggest pieces to try and help you to do is to get your weight very much forward and to try as a guide to get your spine matching the slope. And depending on the severity of the slope, you're going to need to really allow yourself to widen your stance here in order to get far enough forward. If your stance gets too narrow and you try to lean forward, you're going to topple over. So first thing you're going to do is take a wider stance, okay, and lean to the left to try and get your spine matching the target. And now the considerations throughout this swing are to try and feel like you keep your weight very much forward, which can feel uncomfortable, can feel like you're actually going to topple over or topple forward. Recognize that this is a difficult shot and you may not be able to treat it like a standard iron shot. So we've widened our stance, moved our weight forward so that my shoulders are more left and my spine is more or less matching the perpendicular to the slope. The final thing that you're going to do, and I'm going to say this for every single shot that you hear me talk about regarding awkward or sloping lies, make practice swings and pay attention to where your club hits the ground. The number of times I've watched people try to hit this shot on the golf course, they step up to it, they have a little practice swing, and the club bottoms out many inches behind the ball, and they simply shuffle in, oblivious to where the club hit the ground, and go ahead and try to hit this ball, and most notably or usually they hit it fat or they top it. They have no awareness of where that club was coming down. So regardless of all the tips and tricks I'm going to share with you today, the number one thing that you can be doing to help yourself when you're on the course with regards to awkward lies, make practice swings and look for where the bottom of your swing is relative to the ball. Make a backswing, keep my weight forward, swing down, look to where I hit the ground. And if you're making the error of hitting behind the ball, or you're making the error of missing the ground altogether, the likelihood is you're not keeping your weight far enough forward for the slope. So I'm going to go ahead and hit one, keep my weight forward, make sure I hit the ball first and the ground second. I didn't quite make good contact. I caught it a little bit thin. That's quite normal, okay, quite easy mistake to make. And it's because I didn't quite keep enough weight on my front. The difficulty of this shot should not be underestimated, so don't be too hard on yourself if you don't quite get it right, but at least arm yourself with the right thoughts, the right feels, the right tools to try and execute this shot more successfully. Wide stance, weight forward, and then make sure you hit the ground far enough forward that you're not going to make the common error of bottoming out before the ball. So there you go guys, some ideas about how to deal with the awkward uphill and downhill lie shots you face on the golf course. Some ideas that hopefully will help and give you the right tools to at least arm you with a better chance. But remember, the number one thing you can be doing when you're trying to prepare for these shots is paying attention to where this club hits the ground. No two lies, sloping lies, are the same, so you're going to have to adapt and adjust based on what's in front of you. Use your practice swing, make a practice swing, hit the ground and pay attention to where that club is bottoming out. And then you may need to make some adjustments. There'll be some trial and error, but at least if you're mindful and observant of where your club is hitting the ground, you can at least try and make those changes. I hope you found the video useful. It's great to come out on the golf course and talk about these things which we don't always get a chance to discuss in the bay. Next week we're going to be talking about another awkward sloping lie, ball above feet and ball below feet. Make sure you check that one out. If you're not already subscribed, go ahead and join the channel. Click the bell, you'll get notified as soon as that video has been uploaded. If you enjoyed today's video, please do give it a thumbs up. And if you enjoyed it enough to share with your friends to try and help their golf a little bit more, I would be forever grateful. Until next time guys, take care, stay safe. I'll see you again soon for another video.